Welcome to Studio One on this Thursday, October 20th. We're glad you could join us. I'm Tom Buehring. Up ahead in this half hour, we'll talk to educational law professor Dr. Jean Thomas. We'll also get some insight into Native American Day from the Director of Native American Programs, Dr. Leigh Jeanotte. On our Open Doors segment, a unique video from the rock band Aha. And later in the show, we'll be giving away a $25 gift certificate for a dinner at Sanders Restaurant. But first, let's go to the news desk with Marilyn Vetter. Marilyn?
Thank you, Tom. Last week's impeachment of the UND honors senator has created controversy over the need for the honors seat. The Student Senate removed Troy Borchert for missing 3 Senate and subcommittee meetings. Honor students are worried this is the first step to eliminating the honors seat completely.
Well, actually, we have no indication right now that they're trying to take away our seat. All we know is that it was brought up last semester, and it has been tabled to the Judicial Committee to come up again this semester, and we're just concerned about it.
But the student body vice president says the seat isn't an issue.
Well, yeah, they're a section of the academic campus just like anybody else, and I don't think you can take it away fairly. There are people who just have a major in honors, and to take the seat away wouldn't be giving them academic representation.
The Student Senate is now taking applications to fill the seat. Heckman and Borchert say they hope the Senate will pick someone concerned about the honors program. Applications are due 1 week from tomorrow. UND is hosting a peace congress this weekend to address worldwide peace problems. A representative from the U.S. State Department will be participating in the Congress. Richard Johnson is involved with U.S.-Soviet trade issues and Soviet economic reform at the State Department. Johnson will be speaking on Soviet economic reform tomorrow at noon. The forum is sponsored by UND's Center for Peace Studies and the Russian Club. In the shadow of the Air Force's newest success story, the B-1 bomber, lies one of its oldest successes. Earlier this week, we had a chance to observe it at the Grand Forks Air Force Base. The KC-135 Stratotanker first came online in 1957 and has since provided the Air Force with high-speed jet-to-jet refueling. It's a military version of the Boeing 707 transport plane, and its primary function is refueling long-range strategic bombers like the B-1. Even though the tanker looks the same as it did over 30 years ago, its capabilities are anything but old. The old engines have been replaced with 80s technology, which allows the tanker to take off more quickly and with heavier loads of fuel.
One plane can do the job of 2 planes in some cases in the old aircraft.
Fueling takes place at about 20,000 feet and it's transported at 6,000 pounds per minute. The initial hookup is done under autopilot to keep the plane steady. After hookup, autopilot is turned off and both pilots fly manually.
After we made the initial offload, we turned our autopilot off, and then both of the pilots flew with where we had to fly and control the heading, the altitude. And with the aircraft approximately 15 to 20 feet behind us, it's very difficult to do.
It takes a good eye and a steady hand to refuel airborne aircraft. Boom operators are responsible for telling the pilots how close the incoming plane is and for doing the actual refueling. Sergeant Lloyd Rand says his job isn't that difficult, but there are risks involved.
It is dangerous, but if everyone does their jobs, it's safe.
The Air Force is putting new engines on all the tankers, which should make them useful well into the 1990s. And in sports, the Los Angeles Dodgers will try to wrap up the World Series tonight against the Oakland A's with their version of Superman, Orel Hershiser, on the mound. Tomorrow night in high school football, Grand Forks Central and Red River meet to decide second place in the EDC. And that's a look at today's news. Tom?
And the A's have got to be wondering, how do we hit Orel Hershiser? Thank you, Marilyn. This is the last weekend to get reservations for the Anton Chekhov comedy Wild Honey at the Burtness Theater. The play will run tonight through Saturday. Curtain time is at 8 p.m. For more ticket information, contact the Burtness Theater. After a successful sweep last weekend, Fighting Sioux football and hockey will resume action this weekend on the road. Sioux football travels to Nebraska to play the University of Nebraska Omaha on Saturday. And Sioux hockey will have a 2-game series against Colorado College in Colorado Friday and Saturday nights. Weather-wise, what's happening around the U.S. today? Well, let's find out. Here's Studio One meteorologist Susan Betcher. Susan?
Thanks, Tom. It's been a dreary day across the Red River Valley today. However, the clouds are starting to break up and the sun is starting to shine. In the almanac, we had a high yesterday of 55 degrees. There was a morning low of 35 degrees, and there was 6/100 of an inch of rain was recorded. Currently at 4 p.m. in Grand Forks area under cloudy skies, we have a temperature of 45 degrees. The winds are from the southwest at 9 miles an hour and the relative humidity is 62%. Taking a look across the country, out west we have a high pressure system that is located in western Idaho. This is creating cool temperatures all across the western states, and temperatures are in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s throughout this area. To our east, there's another high pressure center located in West Virginia. This is also bringing cool temperatures along the New England states where temperatures are mainly in the 40s and the 50s. There's also a stationary front located across the Gulf states through Florida that is creating some thunder showers and rain showers in the Miami region. As for our area, down south there's a stationary front through New Mexico, Texas, and Arkansas creating thunder showers all along this front. There's also an upper level disturbance that is causing some rain showers throughout the Mississippi River Valley. As for our region, a low-level trough is throughout the western Dakotas and Nebraska. This will be moving into our region late tonight and bring us a chance of rain showers. And that's what it looks like across the United States today. I'll be back a little bit later with the Red River Valley weekend forecast. Tom?
Okay, Sue. The Hughes Fine Arts Center will be alive with activity this weekend. Friday, cellist Eric Coots and pianist Jane Leigh will present a recital at the Josephine Campbell Recital Hall at 4 p.m. Also at the recital hall, UND's concert choir will perform Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock and again on Monday at 8 p.m. After this break, we'll talk to educational law expert Dr. Jean Thomas.
When the clock strikes half past 6, babe, turn to head for golden lights. It's a good time for a great taste dinner at McDonald's. It's Mac tonight.
Now, buy any large sandwich for just 99 cents. Limited time offer at participating McDonald's.
Children with cystic fibrosis want to grow up. More than half of them are now living into their 20s, but that's not long enough. It attacks a child's lungs, and there is no cure, so far. But today, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation is supporting the research that can soon end this disease. The money you give goes immediately to help find a cure. Give a child a chance to grow up. Accept the challenge and support the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation.
Last year, the United States Supreme Court ruled that student newspaper and other student publications can be censored by school administration. This controversy over First Amendment rights is just one of the many aspects of educational law. Our first guest has the distinction of being the only professor who specializes in educational law at UND. Professor Jean Thomas helps administrators to understand what their responsibilities and rights are within the law. Studio One welcomes Assistant Professor Dr. Jean Thomas. Dr. Thomas, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Can I call you Jean?
Yes, please do.
Now, Jean, let's make that distinction again, that you, your role with educational law, you are not defending cases, but you are educating tomorrow's educators, teachers, administrators, principals. Your observation, do you find that while this might prevent potential cases, it stimulates others when educators on the offensive try asserting their rights? Do you find that true?
Well, at this point, no one who has taken my class has later gone to court. Now, I'm not sure whether that's a reason or not. I think just generally, if a person feels like they have a right to assert, they will go to court now, but not necessarily because they took an education law class.
You've mentioned to me before, too, that this is fairly new, it's specialized. Even practicing attorneys, when called upon, many of them aren't that familiar with educational law. What landmark cases would you refer to, and what would some of these practicing attorneys refer to?
It would depend a little bit on what the issue was, but some of the very important ones, the first one would be probably Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. It's the one that desegregated the schools and actually did a lot toward giving students their rights. And then in 1969, there was another very important case, Tinker versus Des Moines. And it was a black armband case where students wore black armbands in protest of Vietnam. And in the Supreme Court decision, they said that students and teachers did not leave their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate. And so from that point, students and teachers realized that they did have rights that hadn't been recognized before.
Over the last several years, we're seeing a boom. You've indicated to me over the last approximately 20 years or so, we've seen 4,000 teacher right cases. Why the boom if landmark cases go as early as 54?
Well, it's probably, there's been an increase since about 1954. It peaked actually in the mid-70s, right about this time when a lot of civil rights cases were being heard. And it hasn't decreased since then. It's sort of tabled at that point, and we've seen about the same number since about 1976.
When we talk about educational law, we're primarily dealing with student rights, school board right, teachers' rights. Mm-hmm. What would be some of the more common cases that we would find?
Okay, today there's been a bit of a change in emphasis. There are still some desegregation cases, some busing cases, but the Public Law 94-142, the Education for All Handicapped Children's Act, has sparked a lot of litigation with parents wanting their children to have a full, free, appropriate education. Also, the economic situation has sparked a lot of finance cases where school districts are trying to figure out how to equitably educate all of these children.
Jean, how about for students? Who instructs the students on what their rights are?
Well, a lot of schools do have law-related education. Now, a student who wants to press a law case is probably approached by a group that feels like a student's rights have been infringed upon. The ACLU does, NEA does, groups like that feel like a student needs to have some support.
I'm assuming that would vary from state to state, but when the students are instructed about their rights, are they asserting their rights and pushing, their rights as far as that they can take them?
Up until the last couple of years, they have. Now, the Supreme Court lately has taken a bit of a step backwards, like in the case that you referred to, the newspaper case. It said that the school officials do have a right to censor a high school newspaper. In another case, a student was not allowed to say what he wanted to in a school assembly. So students up to the last 3 or 4 years possibly would be defined as pushing for their rights. Now there has been a step back and said that school officials can run an orderly educational atmosphere.
It almost appears that societal problems are being driven down to a junior high, high school level. We've talked before about AIDS cases, some being accused that sex education is not dealing with these, and that's why people are getting AIDS. We're talking about professional athletes, college athletes, now junior high, high school athletes who are being tested for drugs. Is this going to change the complexion of education in the 1990s?
Well, there have been so many reform reports about changes that are needed in education in the 1990s. It's hard to say where law will fit into that. There is a big move that the schools need to take charge of the situations that are going on in the schools. That say in the case of drug testing, that if the student athletes are looked on as being the heroes in the schools, and yet they're using drugs, of course that's not necessarily the kind of a stereotype that you want for your high school hero. So they're trying to solve the same problems in society in the schools, sometimes successfully and sometimes not, and it's hard to tell what'll happen in the 1990s.
It'll be interesting to see how things are going to go. Jean, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Dr. Jean Thomas will take a look at an oldie but a goodie rock video when Studio One continues.
Clint Eastwood is a little upset.
Seems some misguided individuals out there are abusing our public lands, and I don't like it. And I don't think you do either. Vandalizing parks and robbing historic sites, or overrunning wild areas, those are ours, and we have to save them. As I see it, these clowns can either clean up their act or get out of town.
Write Take Pride in America. Post Office Box 1339, Jessup, Maryland 20794.
That's Aha with perhaps one of the more fascinating music videos you and I might get a chance to see called Take On Me. Now we've got something that your taste buds can probably take on, compliments of Sanders Restaurant in Grand Forks. Yesterday and today at the Memorial Union, we've been setting up a promotional display that you can be involved with. You've had a chance to enter your name for a drawing for a $25 gift certificate at Sanders. Now if you haven't eaten there, you're in for a real treat. They have midweek specials, Italian night, German night, French nights on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights, and we're going to get a chance to draw for the opportunity for you to go. Here's the box that you entered into, and the winner is Dale Kletchners of Grand Forks, we've got your Dale number. Now we want you to stay by your phone. We're going to give you a call and tell you how you can get a hold of the gift certificates. So stay by your phone. We're going to give you a call, Dale. Thanks for entering. For all those that entered and participated, thanks. Again, our thanks too for Sanders Restaurant in Grand Forks. When we return, we'll talk to the Director of Native American Programs, Dr. Leigh Jeanotte, as Studio One continues. Live theater. Grand Forks has it. Since 1947, Greater Grand Forks Community Theater has entertained the region and spotlighted local talent. Now based in a historic downtown fire hall, the group produces several plays a year, offering musicals, dramas, comedies, classics, and children's theater. Season tickets are now on sale. Call 746-0847 for more information. Our next guest is a part of the UND Centennial Planning Committee for the first Native American Day in North Dakota. Dr. Leigh Jeanotte, Director of Native American Programs at UND, has played a key part in helping to organize the event, which is one of the 8 major programs during North Dakota Centennial. We welcome to Studio One Dr. Leigh Jeanotte. Dr. Jeanotte, good to have you. Can I call you Leigh?
Yes, that's fine.
Leigh, thanks for coming on.
More than welcome.
Native American Day is when?
It's Native American Day is scheduled on April 5th, okay? That's midpoint. We're going to be celebrating the entire week, April 3rd through the 9th.
And that is in conjunction with 2 major events on campus, but not limited to just 2. Can you elaborate on at least the 2 major events?
All right. The UND Indian Association, okay, it's going to be their 20th anniversary, okay? So this program will coincide with their activities. The other activity is the Writers' Conference, and I understand it's their 20th anniversary also. So with coordination and whatever, we're going to be hosting those 2 groups along with Native American Day.
Some of the festivities that are tied into even the nitty-gritty details of the planning, what are we going to celebrate that week? What kind of events?
Well, one of the major projects that we're working on is a Native American curriculum project. You're probably aware that there isn't a lot that is being taught in the schools throughout the state about Native Americans. So we're in the process nearly finalizing a Native American curriculum that will be in the hands of every teacher, hopefully in the state. And they too, during our week, will also be able to teach some things about Native Americans.
Has there been any resistance from any of the Native American participants thinking that we don't need the other events, we can do this on our own? Any resistance in that way?
No, not really. Everyone seems to be very eager, willing to cooperate. There's still a lot that has to be done, but I think we're going to pull it off and have a very successful week.
Some people might ask, why at UND? I didn't know this. UND has one of the larger enrollments of Native Americans in college and university across the country. Will this event lure Native Americans from all over the country?
Yes, it will. We anticipate that we're going to draw people heavily from North Dakota, okay? We typically draw people from South Dakota, Minnesota, Montana, some as far as Arizona, Oklahoma, and the provinces in Canada. So we anticipate that we'll have a big crowd here.
So this isn't tailored solely for just North Dakota?
Not necessarily. The powwow especially is something that is for all Native Americans to take part in.
With UND having the largest enrollment, you being viewed as a leading university across the country, can other states and campuses kind of stand up and take notice to what UND is doing?
I personally really think that we're fortunate for the kinds of things that we do for the Native American students. In terms of enrollment, we're one of the highest in the nation. In terms of the services that we provide, I don't believe that there's another institution that can really vouch to say that they do the kinds of things that we do for our students. And as a result of that, our retention rate is very excellent. It really is.
You also must find yourself these days playing a role of a sensitive diplomat. What occurred back in 1889 as a blessing for some isn't necessarily a blessing for everybody all the way around. How has that shaped, Leigh, the planning for this event?
Well, I think, to be really honest, I think we as Indian people feel that, okay? I know I personally feel that in some cases there's not a lot to celebrate. But I think this is a prime opportunity that we can do some really exciting things to promote Native Americans. I think the understanding, the sensitivity that we can promote will be very good for the state. The largest ethnic minority in the state is Native American, and I think the program will do some of that.
Leigh, the focus is cultural heritage. Has that been able to disarm some of it?
I really think so. Yeah, it has.
On the whole, a positive response and gaining momentum.
Yes, very much so.
From the Centennial Planning Committee to those Native Americans that are participating, are the expectations broad and are they differing?
I guess with the focus of our program, we're going to be really covering a wide realm of activities, okay? We're going to be hosting a Native American exposition where Native people, university people will have the opportunity to display some things about Native Americans. We're going to have individual booths, and Native people will be able to display their crafts, sell items. There'll be foods that will be sampled, during that particular time. So there's a lot of things that are taking place. We have 9 subcommittees. We're going to have an awards recognition banquet that's going to be taking place. From our information, there hasn't been a Native American that has received the prestigious Rough Rider Award. So we've made some recommendations, and hopefully we'll be able to recognize a Native American with that award. Along with that, we'll be giving out the Sioux Award from the Alumni Association, perhaps some 8 honorary degree academic awards, and perhaps some athletic awards during that time, again, to recognize Native Americans.
Leigh, for you personally, what could be the most positive result of the entire week?
I guess from my point of view, I guess the promotion of Native American culture to make people much more sensitive, aware of Native Americans would be my goal.
Leigh, it's only 5 months away.
Yes.
Coming
We're
right
quite
around
busy.
the corner. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you very much.
Director of Native American Programs, Dr. Leigh Jeanotte. We'll take a look at this weekend's weather when Studio One continues.
When the clock strikes 6:30, babe, time to head for golden lights. It's a good time for the great taste dinner at McDonald's. It's Mac tonight.
Now, buy any large sandwich for just 99 cents. Limited time offer at participating McDonald's.
What do North Dakotans do during the winter? Hey, been to a state park lately?
Come out and play, North Dakota. Our state parks are open year-round.
Here are some upcoming musical events to mark on your calendar should you be interested. Singer Ann Reed will perform at the UND Memorial Union's Lecture Bowl at 3:15 on Sunday, October 23rd. Tickets are $5 for general admission and $3 for students. And Country Music Award winner Ricky Van Shelton will perform at the Chester Fritz Auditorium on Monday at 8:15 as part of the Chester Fritz's Country Music Series. For one last look at this weekend's forecast, here's Studio One meteorologist Susan Betcher. Susan?
Thank you, Tom. Our forecast map for tomorrow morning looks like this. The low-level trough that was in the western part of the Dakotas has now moved into western Minnesota, and we'll have temperatures in the 30s tomorrow morning. Our forecast in detail is tonight, under mostly cloudy skies, we'll have a low of 35 degrees. Winds will be from the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and there's a 20% chance of precipitation. Tomorrow we'll have partly cloudy skies, a high of 56 degrees. Winds will be from the northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour, and there's a 20% chance of precipitation. Our extended forecast for Saturday shows partly cloudy skies and temperatures from 55 to 60 degrees, and Sunday we'll have partly cloudy skies and cooler temperatures between 50 and 55 degrees. It looks like we may want to dig out these sweaters because the cold weather is finally starting to set in. That's the weather. Tom?
Susan, thank you. Weather has been not too bad, and it could get a little bit possibly warmer, at least for a while. Tell me this, Susan, do you know, or does anybody else know on the studio floor here, what about daylight savings time? Are we putting clocks ahead or behind? Is it this Saturday or is it next Saturday? Susan, do you know?
I'm not really sure.
Anybody
I think
know?
it's next Saturday.
I believe it's this weekend. It's this weekend. So do so accordingly or you're going to be ahead or behind. We'd like to thank Dr. Jean Thomas and Dr. Leigh Jeanotte for joining us today. From all of us here at Studio One, thanks for joining us and have a great weekend.